So you've done tons of research, you went out and bought a welder, and you laid down your very first few beads with, let's just say, less than ideal results. Then you immediately took to the internet, pleading with somebody to answer the question, what am I doing wrong? That's actually a really common reoccurring question that comes across my inbox constantly. And in this case, it pertains to adding filler to aluminum. They'll tell me that they can run stringer pools all day long, but the very second that they go in there and add a single drop of aluminum from the filler, it all just goes downhill super friggin' fast. So if that's a problem that you're having, stick around because I'm going to show you how it's supposed to look, how to do it correctly, and I'll also answer that question of how you're doing it wrong. It's only going to be on this episode of the Fabrication Series. This episode of You're Doing It Wrong is brought to you by weldmetalsonline.com. Weld Metals Online has the largest selection of welding coupons, practice kits, fun projects, and more. Weld Metals also has welding machines, consumables, and gear, all from top trusted brands. My favorite part of using Weld Metals products is knowing that you can tear the bag open and get welding with no prep required. If you use my code TFS10 at checkout, you'll save on your order while helping to support the welding industry and videos like this. Now, as is with all TFS videos, we're going to try to make this as easy as possible to follow along with and eventually have you guys do it yourself. So that means that we're not going to worry about running the entire length of that coupon because that's just absorbing a whole bunch of things. Instead, we're going to worry about just one single solitary drop of filler and what that looks like. You'll soon realize at the end of the day that no matter what you do in welding, all you're doing is adding one single solitary drop to a proper weld pool. Now, in order to figure out what a proper weld pool looks like, let's go through the evolution of aluminum real quick. Now, when you first light up on a piece of aluminum, you're going to see the first stage of the evolution of a weld pool, and that is the cleaning stage. Now, this little white ashy stuff, as I like to call it, is the actual oxide layer being broken up by the arc of the machine as you're welding it. This is not a weld pool. But if we increase the amps by stepping on the pedal just a little bit more, we're going to see something else happen. These little tiny dots that are starting to form, little shiny spots, little speckles. Now this is where it starts to get the oxide layer out of the way and it almost begins to turn molten, but this is not a weld pool. So let's increase the amps just a little bit more by stepping on the pedal and you'll notice that all of those little shiny dots consolidate into a shiny spot. Now you may be tempted to add filler to that shiny spot, but don't. That is not a weld pool. So instead, let's give it just a little bit more amps and you'll notice that at that point, the shiny spot will turn into a reflective spot that will actually grow or shrink in size proportionately with the amperage supplied by the foot pedal. Now once it's a reflective pool at that correct diameter, now it's time to add some filler. If you don't see that reflective weld pool at the correct diameter, don't add filler. If you do see it, grab some filler and let's go in for a dab. So before we move on here, let's take a moment to scour the comments and see how many people mentioned that little tiny dirty black ring that was around my weld pool. I'll wait. I actually did that on purpose, and the reason why is to demonstrate one of those things that people fail to do, which is post-flowing once they've terminated the arc, or keeping the torch in place and not moving it abruptly right away. In other words, this is what it looks like. Zip! Let's watch that again, in case you missed it. And zip! Well, you might have heard the term post-flow before, and you probably think that that pertains to only exotic metals like stainless steel and titanium. Post-flow is where the gas continues to come out of the torch even after you terminate the arc, and normally you would use it to shield exotic metals or reactive metals. But you also probably think that aluminum is not a reactive metal, and you're right, aluminum is not a reactive metal, but the tungsten is reactive. So if you move the torch way too fast and zip it away like that, you're going to disturb the argon, which means the atmosphere will contact the tungsten, causing oxidation of the tungsten. When you light up, you're going to have really hard arc starts, and you're going to see that little black ring around the weld pool. So once you finish your weld, do not lift the torch. In fact, never ever lift the torch. This includes the moment you go in to add filler. If you lift the torch to place the filler in between the tungsten and the pool, heavy oxidation will occur and you're going to be left with some seriously nasty looking beads. It's also extremely hard to control the weld pool because as the distance increases between the tungsten and the base metal, resistance increases, which means heat increases. So you always want to make sure that you keep the tungsten as close to that metal as possible without touching it, and you never, ever, 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 ever lift up that torch. Never. How many of you think you caught that mistake? Well, let's watch it again real quick. Okay, good. Time to dab. At any moment now. Are you gonna go or... Oh, wait, what? If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you might have heard me say that time equals heat, nothing else. The longer you sit there, effectively, the hotter it's going to get. And of course, if you've watched some of the other ones, you might have heard me mention that you are the one who's in control of the machine. In other words, it doesn't do anything that you don't tell it to do. It only does exactly what you do tell it to do. As such, if you sit there and watch this weld pool get way too hot and start expanding beyond control, it's because you told it to do that, which means that you're not in control of the machine, right? So let's just kind of put it this way. In the case of this bead, I waited way too long to sit there and add my drop of filler to it. In other words, my foot was just pounded to the floor, and as I sit there in one spot, it just keeps growing and growing, growing, getting bigger, 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 bigger. The exact opposite of running way too hot is trying to add filler to a pool that doesn't exist. Here you can see that I have a shiny spot, but not an actual weld pool. As such, the filler balls up and it kind of just drops away or just kind of sits on top of that metal looking like the Chicago bean. It's really all about control of the machine. What you see in front of you is a direct result of what you are doing. There's no magical settings that you can just put into the machine that's going to make it weld. And there's nothing that you're really missing out on other than some seat time, or what we call hood time, staring at it and learning the control aspect of it. So remember, trust your eyeballs. When you see in front of you that you have a correct weld pool, then you can comfortably, confidently control it, add your little drop of filler, and then move on to the next one. Don't just sit there stabbing at it and hope that something's going to magically happen and then wonder why it didn't work out when you weren't the one who was in control of it. Let's move on to the next one. Now, this is part of a stage that I call getting into a rush. Now, if you look carefully, the filler is sitting right next to the arc, and it has absolutely no business being there until it's time to put it there. Now, look again carefully at what a proper bead looks like, and notice that the filler is not anywhere near that arc until it's time to actually put it in. So don't leave the filler just chilling there right next to it. Keep it away from the arc until it's time to add it to the weld pool. If you do start with the filler right next to the arc, you're going to see anything ranging from uncontrollable, gigantic, oxidized blobs that want to fall into the pool, all the way up to getting a Q-tip. And what is a Q-tip? Well, that's actually one of the next big goofs that we have to deal with. Watch carefully. A Q-tip is a term that I use to describe what happens when you send the filler straight into the tungsten instead of into the weld pool where it's supposed to go. The resulting condition of the tungsten kind of resembles something like a cotton swab, and the resulting condition of the weld pool or bead or whatever it is that you're working on kind of resembles a war zone. Now, it's easy to miss Q-tipping your tungsten, but it's easy to see when something isn't right, as black soot is everywhere, there's no definition of the weld pool, and sparks are flying all over creation. Now, if you do notice this when you're welding, simply stop, change your tungsten out for a fresh one, or go and resharpen that one, clean it all off, cut the Q-tip off, put a new point on it, put it all back together, and then go again. And just in case you did miss Q-tipping your tungsten, like you didn't see it or whatever the case is, this is about what it looks like if you try to start a weld pool with a Q-tip. I mean, it's a complete friggin' mess. You should know that something is definitely not right after looking at this. And for what it's worth, for you guys that may be struggling with the Q-tip, this is something that's never really going to go away. In my 20 plus years of welding, I still Q-tip the tungsten. It just, it's kind of part of the game. Something else that I also frequently do that's kind of annoying, it's never going to go away, is the dippy dab. Please trust me when I tell you that this is just as painful for me to shoot these arc shots as it is for you to watch them. Now, earlier I said that you have to keep the tungsten as close to the metal as possible without touching it. And in the case of the dippy dab there, the tungsten is physically making contact with the molten weld pool. In which case, when that happens, you should stop, change your tungsten out for a clean one, or cut all the contaminated stuff off of there and then resharpen and then try again. And again, for what it's worth, the dippy dabs, the contamination, the Q-tips, all the rest of the stuff, it's not going anywhere. Over the course of time, you'll realize it kind of reduces the amount of times that you actually do that, but still, again, to this day, 20 years later, I still do it. So it's just kind of part of the game, right? Eventually you'll get better. So let's do a quick little summary here. There is only one proper weld pool. There are several ways to achieve that proper weld pool, and that's mostly based on the style of the person who's actually creating that weld pool. Some people run a little bit low and slow, and they like to really control it and take their time, and there's people like me that like to go hot and heavy, and we go really, really fast. But at the end of the day, no matter what, all we're doing is creating one proper weld pool, adding a single solitary drop of filler to it, moving forward, reanalyzing, and then repeating. That's all a weld bead is. And the 8 ways I showed you on how to screw it up, well, those are just 8 of the most common ways to screw it up, not like the only 8 ways. There's several ways to do it. So the best thing to do is to go over to Weld Metals online, grab some metal and stuff to practice with, get out to the shop and drop that hood, and quit asking the internet what you're doing wrong after the first attempt. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Hey, I just got a sale.